Welcome again to The Actor's Vow. This is Denise Borraz Trepat. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. I knew there's a lot of new listeners, and I've been getting your messages and your love and, the things that you thought about the last episode and other episodes you've been listening to. And I love you, and I'm so happy you found this podcast and this place, especially if you want to be an actor. I hope this can be helpful for you in your journey. And if you've been listening to the podcast since the beginning, thank you. Thank you for being here. This is the 51st episode, and I cannot believe it. It's been more than a year of this podcast, and it is so much fun to be here. And all of you that have messaged me and I've met along the way, that follow the podcast on social media and also the TikTok page. Of course, a lot of you come from the TikTok page now. Thank you. I love you, and it's so amazing. Today, we're just continuing the conversation that Monika and I left last week. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a very different episode, and today we get even more in depth because it's the second half of our conversation that was like 4 or 6 hours. So in this second part, we truly get in depth about acting in the industry and all the things we talked about last week. So I really hope you will enjoy it. Monika is actually visiting LA this week, which is very random because we literally just recorded the episode. But I'm so happy that her and I got to spend some time in person this week and talk about a lot more stuff. And we're just trying to live our best hot girl summer. That's ridiculous. But no, for real, because after the pandemic, I consider myself an introvert, and we were talking about how before the pandemic, we would say no to a lot of events, even though we would go to parties and stuff like that, because you have to as an actor. We would say no to a lot of things. We're even hanging out with friends. I'd rather stay at home and watch a good movie, than just go out every weekend, for sure. But now that the pandemic's over, especially now that the summer's happening, we're trying to do fun things. So her and I are going on trips, and me and my boyfriend are also doing fun stuff. So I hope this is a reminder for all of you that you're also having your hot girl summer, hot boy summer, from your acting mom, from me, Denise, from The Actor's Vow. I encourage you to have the summer of your life. You still have 1 month left, so please go have fun, whatever that means for you. Go to the beach, go explore, go have fun adventures, because you never know. With the pandemic, that's what we've learned. We never know what's going to happen, so just enjoy the time you have now. I'm not gonna keep talking anymore. I want you to listen to this episode, so please enjoy my conversation with Monika. Again, Monika is one of my best friends. She's a model, an actress, and she's an amazing person. So here it is. Enjoy.
So I am not familiar with what method of acting, what kind of acting you studied, because we never actually talked about it, but what you studied at the university. But I am really interested to know what is your preferred method of acting, if you have any, because this is such an interesting area, because everyone has a different system, different approach to it, and I think it's very important. So I want to know.
Yeah, so I studied in college, but I've also studied outside of college. I studied acting before I started college. I do think, here's the thing that I tell all actors, I don't think 1 degree is enough. I don't think going to college and getting a degree and being I know everything about acting. You always gotta keep training. Even the best actors, right, still have coaches. Those that have won awards still have coaches and keep training. So it's to keep exploring. But I was lucky enough to study with someone who had studied in London, in the UK, because the methods of acting that they teach in America and the European ones are very different.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in America, America's mostly psychological acting.
Yeah.
Method kind of took over, especially for camera acting. So that's the thing they teach you the most. Stanislavski and all that, it's great. I do think that all actors should study that. But also in Europe and in Asia, there's a lot of physical acting techniques where you're approaching the role from a more physical side and then going to the inside, psychological. So I think it's so interesting to see both. And I do think that there's a disconnect when you don't study both, because I do think that there's a lot of actors that are very great at finding the psychology of the character, but then when it comes to the physicality, they're always the same.
Yeah.
right? Like they're always themselves with their physicality, the way they carry themselves. And then there's actors who just approach it from a very physical way in Europe, but then you see that there's a big lack of psychological study there for the character. So I do think for any actor studying those two is like very important. And I also don't think that there's one technique that you should follow. And I do think that if there's anybody that tells you that this is the one technique and the only, like, run away.
Yeah.
I know Lee Strasberg said that, for example, like he would be like, this is like the way, the method, and you don't need anything else. I think that's a big error. And I personally hate Lee Strasberg and his studio and all that, because I do think like all the other amazing teachers will tell you that theirs is one way, but like to keep exploring and keep finding other ways. So for me, it's been like literally studying every single technique I've gotten my hands on, whether it's from a book or taking classes whenever I can. I take classes of another technique and building my own set of tools and my own technique, which is something I'm teaching my students in the coaching program. I'm teaching them several techniques that have worked for me, and then like the way I work.
Yeah.
So the way I work is a mix of the psychological and physical approach. I do like to first do a very thorough like script analysis, and that comes with so much psychology of the character. And when I say so much, it's like I literally write a book about the character. So what I'll do, and it's something that I have not shared, and honestly, some of these are in a very hidden place. I buy, every time I get cast, a journal. And that's my journal for that role.
That's
and
amazing.
yeah, and then I start writing there, and I write there as the character. And here I know it's like a little bit method, but it's not completely method because I'm not just in character when I write the journal. So by the end, since I start until the end of the shooting or the play, that is my journal, and it ends up being like a whole book on the character. So there I write everything. I write my backstory. I write everything about like rehearsals, if there are rehearsals. Every single day I write pages and pages, and that stays with me the whole time. And after I've done all the psychological study, the backstory, that's even before I start shooting or even before I start with rehearsals if we're in theater. Then I go into the physical approach, and I really like to go. I love Grotowski, and that's like the main one I use to find the physicality of my character. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's common. I mean, he was Polish, so I'm guessing where you're from, like they use that method, but it's not very used here in America. I have not seen a lot of actors use it. But that's the way I like to approach, like literally exploring. I'll do like hours and hours of physical exploration for my characters. But the psychology needs to be there before. That's where I'm trying to get, because a lot of actors just do the physical part, but like how do you know what's the physicality if you don't understand the psychology? So you cannot get to any of the making choices unless you've done the script analysis and psychology analysis. And from there, I mean, if you have rehearsals, you get to explore from there. If you're in film, you have to do the work all by yourself. Another of the things that I do first is like learn the script. Once I've done the analysis and all that, I learn the script. And I do think it's very important that all actors like learn the scripts early on.
Yeah, for sure.
I know actors that are like, no, like I hate doing that. That like save it for the last minute, and you really do have to. Like those are the worst.
How are you doing? Like, how are you? No, that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. So I really like to like immerse myself. And to be honest, if you are like my partner, and I have not experienced that in a long time because I either have not been acting or I've been single. But it's very hard because once I get cast in a role, if I live with you, it's gonna be hard because I get immersed in it. Like everything else disappears. And I don't know how healthy is that, but that's how I work. Like once I get cast for all those months, my life is that role. And that doesn't mean like I become that character. I'm not into method. It just means that like I would spend 12 hours a day just working on that role. And that is my priority at that time. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about, it's interesting what you said about, the method, because so my coach is Stephen Michaels. if he sees that. But he is a student of Lee Strasberg
Oh
himself.
God.
So
Oh God. Okay.
I'm saying you shouldn't be saying that. But so anyway, so I studied. No, that's totally cool. So I studied method with him, and I have to say, and this is not going to go down well, but I'm going to be like honest about it. I've hated every minute of it. And I had several times when I left the class where I was absolutely devastated.
Oh yeah.
And I left in tears and I was devastated and depressed, and like it was so, because you're exploring all the traumas and all the dark sides of your souls, and everyone has that, especially people that are sensitive.
Oh yeah.
And so I remember just going out of the room and being like, this is not what I want to be going through. And then after I found, I was looking through the methods, and Stella Adler said the exact same thing. She said, if I'm supposed to draw on like death of my mother or some crazy, emotional trauma, I don't want it. I don't want to act. And that was exactly how I felt the whole time leaving the room. I was like, this is schizophrenic. It's crazy. And there are a lot of people that actually, suffered mental breakdowns.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because of, including, one of the coaches, Chekhov himself, suffered mental breakdown doing the method, and or it wasn't called method at that time, but he was doing similar work. And so I was like, if this is acting, if I'm going to be suffering and being in so much pain every single time that I'm doing this, I don't want it. Yeah. So I on the other hand, I've never studied like Meisner, so I don't have experience with it. But from what I studied and from what I've seen, I subscribe the most to like Stella Adler, or even the original like Stanislavski system, which actually was incorporated.
Stanislavski doesn't agree with Lee Strasberg. That's the thing. Lee Strasberg just like took Stanislavski, interpreted however he wanted, and ran with it, which I think is ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, acting is psychologically challenging no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, even if you do it in a safe way, you will have moments like what you said, even if you don't go to your mother's death. Like, it is you putting yourself in a very vulnerable spot. Like, let's be real. But why would you make it so unhealthy if you can find ways to make it a little healthier?
Yeah, exactly. So I just, I studied the method and I hated every minute of it, and I don't subscribe to it. So I agree much more with, for example, Stella Adler. But who I agree even more with is Meryl Streep, who just said, find your own method.
Yes.
Develop whatever works for you. And I think that that's what you're doing, and that's what you're teaching your students. It's just find whatever works for you. Try the different methods, see what's working for you. Some people are strictly method. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's crazy, but it works for them. So that's cool. But I just don't think it should be, it's so glorified here. Like every time there's, an Oscar winner, it's like, oh, and he did this, and then he swam in feces for a month or something, it's just like, okay, like congratulations, and like you could have done without it, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And like, what is the merit there? Like, I always tell my students, like, is that even acting? Because it gets to one point that if you're really doing that, it's kind of just you as a person putting yourself through that experience. Yeah. Because acting is acting truthfully in imaginary circumstances.
Exactly.
And if you can do that when it's not actually happening to you, that's where the merit is. That's when it's like, wow, what great acting. But if you're actually going through that turmoil, yeah. I don't see where the great thing is.
What a horrible experience too, that just makes you hate what you're doing, and like, how is that going to be a good, I don't know. So, I mean, not that I'm an expert, but I think that everyone has to, make their form their own opinion on it, and just try whatever works for them. So I would say, like, try different kinds of acting, go to different kinds of classes and like see what works for you. And like I'm like much more subscribed to like the physical acting and like working from the outside than just being drawing on your traumas. But I guess it's different for everyone. So
And I do think that there's good things in all acting techniques, even in method. There's some things that make sense. I do think that you can like explore all of them. I've studied method too, and some things like at some points might make sense to like be in character. Like the journal thing I do, I know it's like a kind of method thing.
yeah,
So you can take things from like here and there. I just don't think you should stick to just one method, even if it's a great method.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
what Meryl Streep says, you have to build your own set of tools. But
Yeah.
I do have a funny story. Like, I was rereading the other day Meisner's book because I read it like back in the days, like 5 years ago, and I love Meisner. It's one of my favorite like psychological techniques. And he talks in the end because him and Lee Strasberg hated each other, like Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg. I mean, most teachers hated Lee Strasberg at that time. And he was telling his students how Lee Strasberg was actually not even good and his technique didn't even work apart from it being dangerous. And how he was actually a terrible actor. That if you can ever find like a clip of Lee Strasberg acting,
I
it
think I
sucks.
heard that.
And I'm like, that's hilarious. And he was like, he's actually not that good. And the reason why he's being so praised is because he actually takes students that are already talented and puts all the merit on him. It's like for example, when he took Al Pacino, like Al Pacino was already talented before he met Lee Strasberg. Then Al Pacino went to be an awesome actor as he already was, and Lee Strasberg like attributed all to himself. Right?
Yeah.
He's like he was just very smart at picking talented people, but like he wasn't talented himself or his method doesn't even work. And I was like, damn, okay.
That's another thing that I wanted to point out is that, there are certain people that are actors from God, and especially like child actors. There are a lot of, children like 5, 8 years old who will get in front of the camera and just have it. Like they just immediately, and that really is a talent because like, a lot of times people say, talent doesn't exist and it's only hard work.
Oh, it does. No,
Uh,
talent exists.
in this case, like there are people who just have it naturally, and you can always improve, and you should definitely study, and I think that it's very important to like know the intellectual part of acting and know history and know all the methods. But some people do not need Lee Strasberg to tell them how to act because they just naturally have it in them. And some people can study, 20 years and do all kinds of different techniques and they will still be horrible. It really depends, so
Yeah.
like, know where your strengths are too, but like, it just, I think studying acting is actually very important. But again, I think that Lee Strasberg, as you said, was picking people that were talented from God, and then
Yeah.
just taking credit for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I hope my coach doesn't see this podcast.
oh,
I'm gonna give him a hard time. But
yeah, no, like people always ask me, like, is it talent or is it like hard work? And I do think there's part of both, right? Like, I think you have to be talented and you have to work hard because if you're talented and you don't study the technique, you will be very inconsistent.
yeah,
Like, if you're going through something that day, you won't act well. You have to have a technique so you can be consistently good. And as you said, if you have technique but no talent, some people spend their whole life being terrible. Like, I'm sorry, but there are things that cannot be taught. There is a thing of like, you see some actors, right? And you're like, they have it. Like, their presence on camera is just something that cannot be taught. And that's it. That's talent.
yeah. That's interesting. The talent works for everything. It's like even for modeling, there are like people that are crazy talented they're absolutely crazy talented models. Like you put the camera up, and I'm not one of them. I had to work. Like I didn't come naturally to me, but I know girls who you put the camera up, and they just like are insane. Like
Yeah.
it's a talent. So I have a lot of friends that always say like, talent is like combination. It's talent doesn't exist. It's a combination of hard work and circumstances or dedication or whatever. I don't know. Talent definitely does exist. Like the physical and mental, whatever comes together, it definitely does exist. There's a lot of people that are just like good at something. For example, like I have like had to work hard in terms of like modeling because I was like super awkward. But for example, writing comes naturally to me. I had never had to take any class or anything like that. I write. I've always written great since I was little because some things just came natural to you, some things don't, and that's the thing because with acting, if you don't have it naturally, you can still work on it. Like you can still work it up, and there's a certain type of people that will just never like get at all. But if you work hard, you can still get really good. So like don't give up just because it's not like going immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. No, like I do think that even if you're not naturally very talented, you can get to a very good place. I'm just saying there's a certain amount of talent in acting that is just innate. Like, I don't know, like Meryl Streep. I mean, she's worked very, very hard, but there's also something about her and the way she is. And I do think that's something that cannot like be named. I mean, we're very spiritual. I do think it's like an aura thing. It's something that you project. It's like a special glow that you have to yourself that cannot be taught.
Yeah, exactly. It's a type of energy that you have around you that it just some people just have it and some people don't, and so some people are good at gymnastics and some people are not, so that's just like definitely try it and see where it takes you, but some things come naturally to you and some don't, and you should probably like be pursuing the stuff that like comes naturally to you. So yeah. But also, like in acting, there's another aspect to it. It is much easier for people who are very sensitive and emotional.
Oh yeah.
I remember when I was starting with my coach, the first thing he told me, because I was like, I like have never really acted too much before. Like I, did some like school plays and stuff like that. And he was like, well, I can see you're very sensitive. And, like I can see it from, and I'm talking to you, and I can see that it's a first step to, be able to be a good actor. And, then I, auditioned with him, and I did pretty well. And since then, I've been able to do this. But it just, if there's a certain type of personality that is going to do better in this industry, and that's if you're, which is a really difficult thing to live with, but like for the like sensitive and emotional people, it's going to be a little bit easier, I think. Besides
absolutely, because that also brings you to empathy. I mean, in the end, acting is empathy, understanding another to be able to transform into others, and I've always found myself being that, and I really thought. I guess like I've realized more lately, I really thought like everybody was like that. When you're away, you think, oh, that's just normal. But then you start meeting people and you're like, oh, no, that's not normal. Yeah. And then I realized that like I am very understanding. I think another big thing for acting that goes together with being emotional is intuition.
Yeah.
I always thought that like everybody was very intuitive. Yeah. And I've always been very intuitive. Like I'm very good at reading people, and it's not judging. Like I meet people and right away, like I can feel the energy and all that. So I understand. Yeah. And that's amazing with acting. But that's also something that cannot be taught. And I really thought that everybody was like that. And then I realized, because I hear people like judging others, right? Yeah. And I always find myself, like even in people that seem bad externally, like defending them or like explaining where they are coming from. I'm like, well, they're probably going through this and they acted this way because they are scared or they're whatever, right? And people look at me like, no, why are you defending them? Like, I just empathize with people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to say, because a lot of people are like that, and it is thought in society to be some kind of a weakness if you're empathic, if you're sensitive. And I was always like extremely sensitive, extremely emotional, and very, very empathic. And I always thought that there was something wrong with me. And I thought that, I was just, and my parents always waved it off and were like, oh, she's just so sensitive, and like, it just like, for me, at school, you don't want to get bullied. So like, you have to hide that all the time. And like, you just, you have to toughen up. And so I always thought there was something that I had to hide, that it was always like shameful and in a way, and you should not be sensitive and you should not be empathic. And I just want to say, and I think it's really important to say, is that that's a gift. It is a gift. It is beautiful and it's important. And it's one of the biggest gifts you can have, to be able to experience the life fully in color, and and empathize with other people, and read their stories, and it is so beautiful and so important. And like, let's talk about like how important empathy is, and like being sensitive, and what a gift it is,
Absolutely. And how rare.
Exactly. And
yeah, because
don't hide it. Go out and like share the feelings. I've been always, and not always, that's the thing, I'm starting to be much more open about my feelings. I share my poetry, and I write about like the deepest feelings, and I talk about everything openly, because it is really important. And I'm really proud of like having this gift, and I just don't want anyone to like be hiding their feelings, or think that they're ridiculous, or it's embarrassing, or that they should like act tougher or act cool or whatever. No, I want to see everyone crying, and I want to see everyone laughing like crazy, and I want to see everyone talk about their deepest traumas, and just bear themselves. And that's beautiful, and I want to see that. I want to see the authentic self of everyone. I don't want to see coolness and being, whatever, tough. And just show me who you are. Like, I want to see the heart,
And as an actor, even more. That's what you do. I find it so ridiculous what you said, like how many actors, like, we're projecting this image, right? Like trying to be tough and like being cool. But like what you do as an actor is being vulnerable and raw. And like if you cannot do that in your real life, you're not going to be able to do that acting. And you're right. Like I hid that for a very long time too. Because I mean, I was bullied in school. I like barely had friends growing up. I always was like the weird one, also very sensitive. Like, like I would cry like for nothing.
Yeah.
And like I always thought it was embarrassing. Oh, for sure. But now I'm not embarrassed about it. Like the amount of times I've been called sensitive or weak is just ridiculous, right? When you just like feel things. Like, I don't know, like I cry with the song. Like I'll cry just looking at the sunset. I mean, I don't care. Like I just feel things so hard when I do. I'm so passionate both ways. When it's something bad or good, I'm just fully into it, which kind of what I was saying, like when I get a role, I just go fully into it. That's with everything with me, like with relationships, with friendships, with traveling. When I do something, I just do it fully.
And you feel it fully. And that is so beautiful and important, and it should be praised and not shamed, And like so many people have such a hard time being vulnerable. And it just, I'm going to like an extreme. Like I'm going to be so vulnerable. I talk about everything.
You make people uncomfortable.
I do. Oh my God, my Instagram makes people uncomfortable all the time. And I just recently had one of my friends who does like a social media consulting. He had a huge talk. He was talking to me about how I should not be sharing like so much personal stuff, and I should have one theme for my Instagram, and how like I'm in New York, so I should like sharing cool pictures, cool videos from New York. And he's like, like you're mixing a lot of this like really personal stuff in your Instagram and all the and like it's just like it makes people uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, like that's the point. Like I am bearing my heart. Like I am literally going to the bone because that's just who I am. I'm going to be vulnerable here. And I talk about everything on my Instagram because it just, I feel like it's important and it's part of me. And I am not afraid to be ridiculous and embarrassing. And I'm like that in relationships too. Like I'm going to go full on in relationships, and everyone is scared of me.
People get so scared. No, and let's be honest, men especially, like men are so scared of that vulnerability. And I've experienced the same thing. Like I know it's so hard to be in a relationship. And especially in New York and LA, where like, as we were saying, things are so superficial.
Yeah.
It happens.
Exactly. And I permanently scare people because, I don't play any games, and I'm like, what you see is what you get. Which I think, as again, for an actor, is extremely important, or for an artist, and that's like, a lot of the times I see artists, not just actors, but even like musicians and other artists being like, trying to create a persona, or, like trying to act a certain way and post certain types of, I'm really allergic to it, post certain type of content to get a certain reaction from audience, and grow a certain, and they have target groups of people that like are going to react a certain way. That literally makes me nauseous. Yeah. Because I think that what an artist should be is completely vulnerable, and what makes you unique and what makes you is bearing yourself and bearing the emotions and like going to the bone and like sharing your heart and like really being you. So I'm not going to compromise on this, and I'm not going to be sharing content that's manicured to get certain reaction. I'm gonna freaking go and like embarrass myself on Instagram, like writing about the most personal stuff, because I feel like it's important, and I think it's, brave to be vulnerable. And I, as an artist, I'm not gonna like, I scared so many, guys, I scared them off, and, and they just were like, oh no, that's too much for me or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna write poetry about you, and I'm gonna feel this 200%. It's gonna be like a train. and I don't care. And if you don't like this, I am, how do I say this? I have to be truthful to myself. Like as an artist, I, have to exist in, like, I have to tell the truth, and I have to live truthfully, and I have to be faithful to who I am. And that goes for my relationships, and that goes for whatever.
Everything. That's who you are.
Yeah. So, and I think that that's what makes, to me, I mean, that's how I see it. That's what makes a true artist. If you are able to really bear your soul, and if you cannot do it, it's always gonna look manicured, and it's always gonna look fake, and it's never gonna be you. And how sad it is if you are not being yourself too. Yeah. If you're filling some other persona too.
Absolutely. And I find it especially hard here in LA. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in New York, but here in LA, there's such like I just hate the spiritual scene here in LA. There's such like a good vibes thing going on, and being spiritual is being everything positive. Like, yes, be vulnerable, but just with the positive stuff, like good vibes only. Yeah, and it's such a big thing here in LA, right? And same with artists. Like, yes, I'm very vulnerable, but everything is vulnerable good. But when you go with the bad stuff, like no, like don't kill my vibes, right? Like, no, I don't want this negativity. And
Yeah,
it's like, well, when we're talking about feeling things, it means also feeling the bad things. It's like
exactly.
not running away from that. If you're sad, just sit in that. And it doesn't mean that you're a negative person. Like, we're both very positive, like, and then you get out of that. Doesn't mean sit in that sadness forever.
Yeah.
It just means that you need to understand yourself and accept those parts of you too.
Exactly, because everything, the good comes with the bad. Like every time, it's never gonna be, like just perfect. That's why I'm so allergic to like the perfect manicured Instagram accounts. Like I just can't. I'm gonna be like shaming some of my friends right now, but I'm just like I just please just stop being so manicured and perfect. And another aspect of it is, which is a huge thing, especially in LA, is all the filters and all the uh, um, how is it, all the apps that are used to like alter your face and like
Oh
Photoshop.
my god. Oh my god. Like I know so many people that in real life do not look like in their pictures like at all.
Yeah,
Or like some people that never posted a story without a filter.
but imagine like the thing with that is that how sad it is that you actually don't look like it in real life. Like I would be so sad.
It's so embarrassing. Like I'm sorry, but right? Like I don't know what the point of that is, to be honest.
It's I think it's insecurity, and I mean there's a lot of pressure to like look perfect all the time, but so like I to a certain extent I understand that, but still like it just seems like so sad to me. Like if I don't look like it in real life, like that's just really sad.
It is because if you're doing that to then get a job, when the director producer sees you, they're gonna see that that's not you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's an issue.
Yeah. I've had so many photographers that were like, "Oh, I need to like meet up with you first. I need to see you in real life," because I've had so many people like send me, pictures with the puppy ears and stuff like that, and then like they come and they like look totally different.
Yeah.
So it just, I think it's just ridiculous. But it's just really sad that like if you don't look like it in real life, then like what's the point? So yeah.
It's sad. It's the culture here though. It does that.
Yeah, and plus like plastic surgery and like all kinds of crazy stuff, which never looks better either. So it's not like what you look like. It's like who you're inside, that shines through. And
Yeah.
every sex symbol diva of the classic cinema will tell you that it comes from the inside and not from what's on the outside. So
It
yeah,
does.
with the personality. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like to know 3 places where you would like to travel when you have a chance.
Okay. So the first one is very easy. That's India. I've been wanting to go there since I was a little child. I've been like called to go to India so many times, and I've been like almost going, but I've never actually done it. So that's like the first place I'm going as soon as I can. Very excited for that. Is it places that I've never been to?
They can be also places where you've been and you want to go again.
Want to go back? My favorite place that I've been to is in Italy, the Amalfi Coast, like Napoli and all that. It's so beautiful. So I really want to go back there. And that's one of the first trips I want to do as soon as things open up. And I don't know, a place that I've never been to that I like to go to other than India. I would love to go to like maybe like some islands. Like I've never been to any island like the Caribbean or the Maldives or
Yeah.
something like that. That would be very cool. I've all the vacations I've done have been to like cities or through Europe, America, but I've never gone to somewhere tropical. So I think
Yeah.
that would be something different. Yep.
Okay. So 2 things that you are scared of.
Okay, so the first one is snakes. I'm gonna go with objects first. So definitely that's like my biggest fear. I cannot see them on TV. I cannot see them in person. It's so scary. So no snakes. The second thing I'm scared of. There are so many things that I'm scared of. But I think the biggest thing that I'm scared of is to like getting to an old age and like regretting that I didn't do the things I wanted to do.
Love it. Yeah,
So I think that's like my biggest fear because everything else is like silly things. But I try to live my life very consciously of that fear, so that doesn't happen. Of like always pushing myself and doing the things I want to do.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And then one thing that you would change about this whole journey, would you have done anything differently?
I would have not. A lot of times they ask me that, and I've asked myself that, and I would have not. The things that I'm like, I wish I hadn't gone through that. Like, I just wouldn't be the person that I am today or where I am today without those. And I am just so happy with where I am today and who I am that I just would not want to change those. Yes.
I love that. I love that. And I agree totally.
Yeah. Okay, so that was an awesome talk. We went like to 2 hours talking.
And we could go all night.
We could go all night. I love it because all my episodes are like 45 minutes, 1 hour, and sometimes even 45 minutes seems like it's a long talk. But I knew that wouldn't happen with you.
Just doing stuff. Yeah.
So that was very cool. Thank you for coming, Monika, and for like, having this chat with me. Tell everybody listening where your Instagram is and where they can find you.
So my Instagram is Monika Kieran. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be probably tagged at at the episode, so you can find it. You can find it there.
Yeah, I'll tag you in the notes and everything.
For like a crazy ride because it's a weird Instagram.
It's so much fun. Like Monika just shares her most random New York stories or like life stories, and I'm there for it.
Yeah, no, it's just like, but it's like all over the place. Like it is the most random thing. Like I'm just, whatever is happening to me is going on Instagram. So yeah.
I love it. Like honestly, you're like one of the only people that I've never missed the stories or like the posts because I know they're like gonna be good.
Yeah, it's just like I think it's like a part of being authentic is just like being with crazy. So
yeah.
All the best people aren't they?
Absolutely. All the best people are crazy. What a truth. Do not ever, ever, I know we said it in the episode, but do not ever let anybody tell you you are too emotional, too sensitive, too crazy, whatever they're saying. Please do not let them. You are so special and you are following your dream. And I know because you're listening to this podcast. And I know that if you're listening to this podcast, you're on the right path. You're listening your dreams. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in your life telling you not to do this or that it's going to be hard or that it's impossible. Whatever they say, please do not listen to them. It's going to be okay. I'm here to tell you, you are on the right path. So if you were waiting for a sign, this is your sign. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. We really went on a tangent with like method acting and, the industry and what it is like to be an actor here in LA and more like the social life of it. But I hope it was helpful. I know it was different and I love doing an episode like this. So hopefully, let's hope for more episodes like this, more vulnerable guests, and more of these deep conversations. Please send your questions. I'm always happy to answer your questions in this podcast with anything that might be about the industry, about acting, about me, whatever you want to know. Let me know. As always, make sure to follow the podcast on iTunes and on Spotify and leave a review if you can because that's very helpful for the podcast and for other people to find it. Also follow the podcast, The Actor's Vow, on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. The videos of the interviews are there on YouTube, and of course TikTok, where there is a large following and there's like things happening every single day. There is new content about acting and about my life here in LA. So that's gonna be it for this week. Thank you so much for being here another week. I love you so much, and I will see you next Wednesday.